Hello everyone and welcome back. Well, we are here once again in Vietnam. I guess I can say it again. I don't know. Good morning, Vietnam. Yes, I know. I used it on the Duster episode as well, the previous episode. But this time I'm still being inspired once again by the American Artillery in Vietnam, the book produced by AK, distributed by AK Interactive. So many great images, so much fun stuff to look at here. This time we're going to concentrate on our artillery piece, the AFV Club M110 Artillery Howitzer. This is, let's call it a comprehensive kit. We'll get into that a little bit later. A lot of things can move and twist and all sorts of things. Inside, we'll look through the sprues real quick here. We'll get into the build in just a second. We've got our olive drab type styrene here. We've got a few extra little goodies here at the bottom. We've got a turned aluminum metal barrel. Boy, if I could talk, that would be great. A couple of brass bits. We've got some photo etch, it looks like, down at the bottom, a decal sheet. And speaking of instructions, let's take a look at those. Oh, this first part looks nice and easy and very similar to what we usually would look at. And as we flip through the pages, so far, really no clues as to kind of the complications that we'll come into a little bit later. We'll get into the more specifics of that as we move along here. And that's partly the reason why, well, this episode's taken a little longer to kind of hit the airwaves here, because kind of got bogged down with the build process here. But that's, you know, we'll get into that as we get through here. Per my usual, I'll spend a little bit of time doing some research, taking a look, in this case, a lot of time looking through that book, trying to find some nice reference photographs, look through the color plates at the end of the instructions, and what did I come across? Well, guess what? One of the decal sheets in the color plates of the instructions also goes with one of the photographs within the book itself. So now I have a reference, I have decals, I'm ready to get started. Of course, we're going to start with construction on this project, and yes, this is going to, if you looked at the timestamp, this is going to be a longer video because we're going to go from beginning to end here, all the way through, and there is quite a few steps in all this and quite a few little twists and turns too, so I hope you stay with it all the way through. Construction at this stage is very straightforward, anything you would expect from basically every model kit. Start working our way up through the hull, some nice photo etch just to take care of the backside of some of these grill and vent openings here, just cut them out from photo etch, and then we'll just install those in place with a few drops of super glue. So as I kind of flip through the instructions, you know, and I do this with all my projects, I kind of get a plan of attack here. How am I going to approach this project, and what's my build sequence going to be, you know, whatever the case might be. Each project has its own little individual quirks, and, you know, you kind of work with those. In the case of this M10, it was obvious from the instructions that there are basically three, maybe four, but three specific components that could be built separately and then combined at the end. One would be the basic hull structure here, and when I say maybe four, the other one would just be the road wheels and those types of things. The second would be the spade on the back of the vehicle. That's its own little assembly. That goes together great. Nice little assembly right there. Looks wonderful, fits great. Construction was nice and easy. And then the third would be the gun platform itself. And this is part of the build that everything just started to slow down like molasses here. So the first part of it's great. We're just kind of building the superstructure here. So the gun platform itself, we've got these, it's all workable, so that's great. We've got these little brass rods that allow movement to happen here. So that's all very good. Now, take a look at these instructions. There is a ton of plumbing or hydraulic lines that run up and down and around this gun platform here for all sorts of different purposes, electrical and hydraulic. And oh my goodness, these instructions are less than clear in this area. Couple that with, there's a couple different types of materials. So there's this rubber type of material that a lot of the hose lines, especially the hydraulic hose lines, are made from. So those will be needed to be adhered with super glue and cut out from a separate sprue. And then there's some styrene, say, electrical lines or hydraulic lines that are more fixed in place that also need to be cut out and applied. The real issue here is, and I'm not trying to take away anything from the kit because, as I said, it builds up beautifully when it's all done, but it takes a lot of work to decipher the instructions at this stage. The line drawings are just not very clear, and I say that with all due respect to the engineers and the people who put everything together, but Oh, this was a challenge. And so what started as just kind of whipping through this thing turned into the better part of 3, 4, maybe 5 days of trying to decipher all this plumbing and hydraulic lines and getting everything where it needed to go. It was an easy task, and you can talk to some of my friends online and they would say that I actually vented a little bit towards them as well, just kind of letting off some steam, because it was not a fun process, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, that said, now we're there. We've got everything ready to go. Now we can start with the fun part, which is going to be the painting. And there's some nice surprises that we're going to be doing here on the painting part. Oh, hang on here, because speaking of not painting, by this time I'm fatigued, and guess what? I've got this gun housing on the backside here and this metal barrel, and oh, it's supposed to fit inside, so I glued that together before I put the aluminum barrel in there. There's a ridge, so I had to force that apart because I just glued it together so it wasn't set, and then had to put everything back together. And of course, the plastic parts have seam lines. I'm not sure why they didn't give you a full metal barrel, but they didn't. And now it's time to kind of put everything back together, do some sanding. Yes, can you feel the frustration building up in my voice at this point in time? Even the reliving of the process here. It took some time, and it took, I don't know, it took all my patience. But I'm past that part, right? And everything's going to go smooth. And actually it does. So at this stage, we're just adding some of these little final details to the model itself, getting everything ready for painting. The instructions, as I said, through that section of the gun platform, that is a difficult situation. Just take your time. Try not to throw it against the wall from time to time, and you'll be rewarded with a very, very nice kit. And here it is. Okay, now let's get on to painting, and this is going to be the fun part, and there's going to be a lot of changes to my usual process here. So this is the part where, from this part forward especially, I hope you stay tuned, because there's a lot of new products and a lot of new techniques that I'll be using here. First off, right off the bat, you can notice I'm once again using Gen 3 paints for the base color. I do love these colors. I do love the paint. They go on great. A lot of people have asked me, seem to have difficulties painting with these. Just thin them a little bit more than maybe you're used to. I mean, I'm about 50-50 or 60 paint to 40 thinner, something in there. There's a high pigment ratio within these paints that makes it so great for brush painting. Work that back a little bit in order to airbrush it. I love this dark green color, and I think it looks very authentic to those Vietnam type vehicles. Now, another new thing I'm going to try here. You know, these painting masks, they've been around for quite a long time. People have used them, especially aircraft modelers. But I'm going to be trying quite a few different techniques here, and there's a few different reasons why, but most importantly, I make a lot of models. You've watched these videos. There's hundreds of them out there right now. And it's easy to get into some sort of I'll call it a rut. I don't know if that's the right word, but at least a routine, where it's kind of mechanical. And I want to break out of that on this model for sure. I want to try some new things, some new products. So I want to start adding some vibrancy, or some, I don't know if vibrancy is the right word, some variation, that's the word. It starts with V, different word. Variation to the base colors here. So these masks work great for that. And it's just a very lighter shade of the base color. Just added a few drops of a little bit of like a deck tan in there just to lighten it up a bit. And then as I get to this part here, it's a little bit of blotchiness here and there, and also want to emphasize some of these high points, kind of like a modulation idea here, and just kind of airbrush and unify some of this up here just to kind of bring up the overall color a little bit and desaturate it a bit. Add a few decals here, very limited decals. We've got Draft Dodger 2, that's our reference photograph that we've been working off of, and the decal sheet here, but not a lot of decals. Just put a little setting solution there, get them in place, and allow them to dry, and we'll get on to the real star of the show, the weathering. A special thank you to all my amazing Patreon members for your incredible support. Your contributions help me continue to create content for this channel. If you're not already a member, I invite you to join our Patreon community. As a member, you'll gain access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content, early releases, and more. I hope you'll consider joining Patreon and supporting this channel. Thank you very much. Okay, now on to the main event. This is the weathering. And those of you who followed my channel and my projects, you'll know that I love my oil paints, but not on this project. No way, no how. I'm gonna be using some enamel filters, some that I have in my stash, and a few new products. This is deep shades. This is an acrylic color. And so these are, I think, intended for more like the gaming industry, especially the figures. They wash on, wash off kind of a thing. And then I have, well, war game washes, and you can guess what these are dedicated for. But I'm gonna apply these to armor models and see what I get, using acrylics and enamels simultaneously here. The enamels, the war game washes, they come with a dedicated thinner. Honestly, I don't quite know the difference between that thinner and, say, an odorless thinner, because they both worked well in my experience. And then we have our washes of various colors here. So now, let's just get started. This is an experiment. So you are watching me basically test drive new products on a new subject, the subject you guys are watching right now for video, in live time. So not a lot of well, really no preparation at all. Let's just see how it works. So what I've started to do is use the thinner just to pre-moisten the surface. And I would do that whether I was using my oil paints or, in this case, these enamels here, just to make sure that, because I have a dead flat surface, the Gen 3's dry super flat or super matte, and I don't want to have staining per se. I don't want to have, you know, hard stains, harsh stains, I should say. So I'll just pre-moisten the surface, prepare the surface a little bit. I find myself, I think this is out of force of habit here because I use the oils so much, I'm applying the colors very much in the same manner that I do my oil paints. It's limited. So in this case, I have a filter, an enamel filter, which if you use filters, generally they're used kind of overall as, you know, just kind of change the hue and the color of the base tones. I'm finding it that I'm using them more as a very specific dust tone in very specific locations. And I'm also finding that my application process throughout, whether I'm using the enamels, the filters, you know, the wargame washes, or the deep shades, the acrylics, I'm kind of following my same brush sequence too, which is add the color, you know, to the area, let it set for just a little bit, and then come back with a clean brush, a soft brush, and kind of stipple it back and diffuse the color and clean things up a bit. And it's kind of an ongoing back and forth process. That works great with the oils. Like I said, I think it's just kind of my force of habit here. So even though I'm using different products and my methodology is kind of consistent with my old ways. I guess that I'm that old dog that's not learning very many new tricks at the moment. So I mentioned a little while ago that this really is a test drive. So these are new products. I've not used them before. I'm really literally test driving them on this model. And even though I have a nice selection of colors, or from the color range from each of these products, the wargame washes and the deep shades, I don't have a full complement of colors on either. That meaning I don't have every shade I would like. I have to go back and forth. It's forcing me to go back and forth. And I don't mind that, because there is a way to work with enamels and acrylics simultaneously or together or on top of each other, however you want to phrase that. But you can go back and forth between those two product bases, basically. So the first one is, so at this point I have a base layer of some color here that I've added using those enamel filters, the wargame wash. Now I'm coming to over the top of that with more distinctive, these would be, say, the environmental colors, or the more reddish brown colors traditional to Vietnam for this setting here. These are acrylics right over the top of the enamels. Now, why does that work? Well, there's a couple of reasons and a couple of methods on how to make that work. First, you can dry off the enamels really quickly with a hairdryer. Once everything's dry, it's like a clean slate. You can just start again and everything will be great. The second way to do that, if you want to make sure, similar as you would do with the enamel wash using the odorless thinner to kind of pre-moisten the surface, you could change the surface tension of that surface by just applying a layer of water. Just wash it with some clean water, let that dry, and now start working with your acrylics. Either way works. You can go back and forth, but it allows you to seamlessly move between enamels and acrylics and back and forth and back and forth. And that's what I'm doing throughout. You'll see that as the bottles kind of come in and out of screen. And so I know this is a lot to take in. This is like I said at the beginning, this is a longer video format. We're going to be close to half an hour here. And I debated once or twice to myself, like, should I make it into 2 videos? Should it be 1 video? And then I left it up to my Patreon. So I put a poll on a Patreon page, and by overwhelming support, they said, hell yeah, show us everything at once. So that's why we have a longer video here. Which brings me to, if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe. And if you'd like to be part of that foolishness of looking at videos beforehand, voting on things, seeing projects that don't come to the propaganda channel, to the public eye, then Patreon is a place for you. We also have a Discord server where you can share your own works and have discussions as well. So with that said, I'll pull back a little bit. We'll just kind of let this roll through for a bit, and I'll come back in a little bit later.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'll jump back in here just for a second. This is really nothing different in terms of techniques or anything like that, but we've moved on to the side of the vehicle now, so I just kind of wanted to wake you up a little bit. I know I've got some music or something in the background here, maybe lulled to sleep. Same process, same thing that I'm doing all the way along. I start out with the lighter colors. This would be that dust enamel filter that I have in my stock here. That's a great color, and I'll start transitioning to some of these other colors as well, just adding details. Again, very precise. I'm not giving overall washes. I'm building up the streaking and the grime and the splatters and things like that in a very methodical type way, layer by layer. Okay, I'm going to jump back in here because we're finally coming down to some of these final details. These piston rods, these polished aluminum fixtures here, we're going to go ahead and use that true metal color. We're going to buff those out. Gives a very nice metallic sheen. Those are going to be just perfect. If you haven't used this before, this product before, it's kind of a wax paste. Rub and Buff, I think, is a similar product that we used to use back in the day. Some great colors, and like I said, it buffs out nicely. And then finally, we're coming down to the final stretch here. Everything is together. I've got the spade on the back. It's connected. We've got the gun in place. Now just a few final touches here just to bring everything together. I'll take a few photographs about this time, and I'll see areas that I want to kind of fix or enhance. Get everything ready for the final presentation. And then speaking of final presentation, well, here we are. We're at the end of this, call it exhaustive build, but it's been fun. I've enjoyed coupling these last two projects, the Duster and the M10, with this American Artillery in Vietnam book. There was so much great stuff. I mean, even if you don't build these models, but you are an enthusiast of either the Vietnam era, some great history, artillery, just that book is just absolutely fantastic. So I'm sure it will inspire you. In the meantime, I don't know what's coming up next, but there'll be something, of course, as there always is. If you like this channel, please hit that like and subscribe. I would appreciate that very, very much. And thank you again for putting up with this whole entire thing. It's been a longer video, but I do appreciate that. If you like this longer format, let me know in the comments. If you wish I would have went ahead and cut it into two, let me know in the comments. That's all important information I'll take forward, because I want to share this information with you in the best way possible. Until the meantime, happy modeling, everybody. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.